Hey everybody, we are teaching Tilt Brush. And as you can see by our environment, today is not your standard tilt brush. This is part of a short series we're doing for using Blocks by Google. This is a 3D modeling program that we can actually take what we create here and put them in Tilt Brush and use them as a base for what we paint on. This is especially useful for our Oculus Quest using friends because they have issues with memory on their machine. A blocks-made model takes less resources than painting it from scratch inside of a sketch. So if you can make some of your pieces ahead of time, you can then bring them into your sketch and do more with those pieces. This is also helpful on the PC because once you've created these pieces, you can export them and use them in programs like Blender and Unity to actually use them for game design, for 3D modeling, for making primitives, that type of thing. So this is actually part 2 of the series. Part 1, we looked at the basic tools, what they are and how they work. This episode is about building an actual piece, creating a model for use in different places, for exporting for different purposes. We will be doing a part 3 of the series where we're actually looking at saving, exporting, where the files are and what types of files they use, so you can use them for different programs, including Tilt Brush. So we're going to take what we make here today and use it in the other video for actually using it within Tilt Brush itself. So now that we've seen what these tools are and how the basics of them work, I'm going to use these tools today to make a model, to make a thing, so I can then use that thing in other programs. I'm going to build it mostly using the basic shapes. I'm going to use the stroke tool to add a few details. I'm going to use the paint tool not to really do texturing, but to block out where I want things to be. So the roofs are going to be red, so I know to do the tiles there. Certain places I'm going to do brown, so they're wood, or gray, so they're stone. So it's not for the actual texturing, it's just to remind me what I'm going to do here. We're going to use the grab tool for fine-tune movement, as well as we're going to make groups. So if I make a whole tower out of several pieces, I'm going to use this tool to turn that tower into one group and make duplicate towers and that kind of thing. Modify tool is tricky. We're going to use this one a bit as well today. This is to take a shape and alter it. So I could take a flat wall and carve in a window, or extrude a buttress coming out of it, that type of thing. So we're going to see how we can use this to make our finished shape. So the shape we're going to do today, I'm going to make a classic medieval castle. Just because you can see how it's made up of a bunch of simple primitive objects that we can add a little more detail here with the intention of painting detail in Tilt Brush. So I'm going to start with some primitive shapes. And for a simple tower, I'm going to use a simple cylinder with a cone on top. So I'm going to start with a cylinder, grab my cylinder shape, make it kind of big. This is just to start with. Now, before I draw my tower, when you make your picture, think first, do we need things to line up perfectly? Nice 90-degree perpendicular. So if I'm painting a city, do I want my streets perfectly straight and parallel? Or if I'm doing something organic where things are much more flowing or at different angles? If you know ahead of time, start with the grid turned on. You can even see the grid dots around my controller now. If you start this way, then everything you paint, you can see how the cylinder snaps to the different directions. From here on out, everything I paint, I know will be perfectly aligned with each other. Start with the grid turned on. Since I'm going to be a little more organic, things going in different directions, I'm going to start with the grid turned off. So now you can see I can angle this at any direction. It's good to know early, because if I decide halfway through I want things to line up, it's going to be tricky because what I painted doesn't line up. It might not be perfectly square, that type of thing. So do think about the grid before you paint your first thing or create your first model so you know ahead of time if you need to line up. I am intentionally not using the grid, and I'm just going to make a cylinder. partly because I'm going to move it around and that kind of thing. Now the cap is going to be a nice cone, so I'm going to change my model to the cone. Now since I want the cone to stay round, holding this trigger finger when I make it, you'll notice without the trigger finger, the cone can be distorted different shapes, not a perfectly round cone. Undo. If I hold down the trigger when I do this, you can see it stays perfectly circular. So I'm going to make a nice good sized cone here. And now I'm going to use the grab to put it in place. Now I could just eyeball it and hope for the best. Here's another case where the trigger comes in. If I have an object near another object and I trigger, see how there's that green line in there? That means the cone now stays centered over the circle. I don't have to eyeball it. Or if I have a flat surface, let's grab this guy again. Whoops, accidentally changed models here. That's a pain. Unfortunately, because I'm using an index, doesn't always line up for tapping the bases. Well, I'll try to do it with my left hand here. So if I grab it and I'm moving it, if I hold down this trigger this way, you can see how it wants to stick to the pillar. I can come over here this way. Trigger. See how it tries to stick to that surface? It tries to line up. Dot means it's a center point. I'm going to move this a little bit closer to the camera. And once again, trigger. So it's trying to snap to the center. Or if I'm a little bit above it, trigger. You can see how it tries to find out a line-up point. Now, it's not always going to be exactly the same every time. So you may have to fiddle with it about like that. So now I've got the tower. The cone is perfectly centered. If I move around different directions, that type of thing, you can see the cone is nicely centered over it using the trigger finger. This is going to frustrate me. If I was using the regular Vive ones, tapping the base like in Tilt Brush does it. But you can see in an index, the bases don't quite touch in it, so it's hard to get it to register as a tap to switch hands. Tap, drat. I did it by accident earlier, and now I can't get it back. Well, we'll play with that later. Now that I've got this, if I use the grab tool, if I just grab one piece, I will rip the cone off the column. If I start the grab away from the piece, grab and drag through them, you can see how it selects both those pieces. Now they're both highlighted. Now a grab and move takes both pieces together. They are considered together. If I'm not careful, I could accidentally grab one piece off again. Undo. Undo on this hand. So if I want to keep them together as a group, step one, make them a group like before, off, select them both. But now, as long as I've still got it triggered down, my thumb button, the top of the two buttons, is a red folder. If I press the top, if I press the top of those two, so I'm going to select them both, button. Now they are saved as one piece. It is a group. So now if I grab any part of it, they stay together. If I grab and duplicate, duplicate. If I just grab the cone, it's still a group. If I just grab the base, it's still a group. So when you select multiple objects, top thumb button, that's what turns it into a group. Please note I'm not actually left-handed. I'm just having trouble getting my controllers to switch. Just like Tilt Brush, if I want to get rid of something, I can grab it and throw. Now what's fun in blocks is when you throw it, I don't know if you can see that, but it shatters into little blocks and disappears. But that's the same as tilt brush. You can get rid of things by grabbing them and throwing them away. So here is my tower. Now, we can do certain things. For example, your gripping hand, thumb trigger up, makes this object bigger and bigger and bigger. Thumb trigger down makes it smaller and smaller and smaller. It's not a stretch like tilt brush. It's using your controller thumb pad. Thumb pad up and down, bigger, smaller. Thumb pad left, duplicates. Go away. Thumb pad right, you can't tell on this one, but it's a mirror image. So if I have a hand, I can grab thumb to the right, and it flips it. It mirror images it. So now I have two hands that look the same. But I don't need to do that here since it's symmetrical. Flipping it doesn't mean anything. But I'm going to take this castle tower. I'm going to make a couple of them. Duplicate one here. Duplicate one here. Duplicate one here. And I could make them bigger, smaller, that type of thing. Now to join them together, I'm going to make some castle walls here. Just like tilt brush, both hands grip moves the world. This case, I'm just going to switch to a simple rectangle. So that I can do, I'm going to need to make this whole thing bigger, please. Make you a lot smaller, please. And I actually want to do a thin wall, pizza box style. So I'm going to start here, drag you down and across. Since I do not have the grid going, you can see I'm not perfectly straight. Not too bad. Ooh, now I'm even out of focus. But that's going to be okay, because now I can use the hand tool to grab this guy and make him line up a little better. If he's a little too tall, I can make him a little smaller. Smaller, 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 smaller. There we go. This is not a guide. You can't stretch, just bigger, smaller in general. But now you can see that makes a nice castle wall. So I'm going to quickly go over here and do another one. Keep it nice and tiny. Across and down. Keep it nice and skinny. Grab it, adjust it into place. Okay. Now I could group that whole section, duplicate both towers and the wall, and build it up even faster. In this case, I just did the towers, so I'm going to do the walls manually. Now in this case, I'm actually going to make the walls coming out like this. You're coming out like this. But I don't need to make them connect, because I'm going to do a big rectangle here. Let's get this bigger. Make it roughly perpendicular. And then I grab it and adjust it. Can you see what I'm doing? Let's move it up a little higher. So I basically made a keep. Let's make sure it's up and down. Here's a case where doing it with a grid might help. But there, you can see how this is coming along. Now do bear in mind these towers are groups. So if I want to do towers along the top, come on, please change back for me. I'm not even sure how I got them to change in the first place. I don't think there's a keyboard control for it. There's not a reset. Oh well. Anyway, we'll get there again. So we're going to select one of these towers, duplicate, bring it up here. Here's a case where, again, I'm going to make it smaller, 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 smaller. But I want a longer stem. So I'm going to do him here. But now I'm going to go back to that cylinder. Let's make it a little bit bigger. A little bigger. Stop that. A little bigger. And now we're going to see if we can get it to align using the trigger. See how it lines up? No, we don't want to make it bigger. Not perfect, but close enough for government work. we're going to grab all of these pieces and put it down here. And duplicate for this corner. But you can see I only duplicated that group. So let's get rid of you. Grab that whole thing again. Duplicate over here. Grab the whole thing, since the bottom isn't part of that group. Duplicate over here. Grab both pieces. Duplicate over here. I'm going to grab both pieces. Duplicate. But now I'm going to make it much, much bigger and plant it here. Okay, so now we can see this coming together as a model, as a visible castle. This is all just a matter of placing pieces, grouping pieces. I could even now go in and add a little bit of color. Let's get these castle roofs all nicely tiled type of thing. Whoops, a little too much. Undo. There we go. I'm not going to bother with stonework, detail, gates, that type of thing, because that can be painted in Tilt Brush using more creative brushes and things. This is just to build the shape, to build the model. I could even build these up. So now let's go back to our gray. Let's go back to our rectangle. And this time, whoops. And duplicate over here. Sometimes the primitive shape doesn't have what we want. I want to make sort of an archway here, something like that. That's where we start getting into the modify tool, the pliers tool, because that's what really allows you, come on guys, that's what really allows you to modify the shape. I'm going to be doing it left-handed, it'll be great. So with a modify tool, you can see as I move near objects, I can get a little closer so you can see this, it outlines its vertices. These are the actual lines that make up the 3D model itself. And this tool lets you grab those lines, pull them out, send them in, that type of thing. This will also let you add more lines. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to blow up my castle gate so we can see what I'm talking about here. I didn't get to this side, so again, we can see what I'm talking about. Now, right now, this is all just 4 lines. If I want to break this out into an arch, let me peek out from behind here. If I want to break this out into an arch, I really want to slice this into different pieces. If you look at your modify tool, up, left, and right give you the different controls. Up, I can actually go in here and choose a surface and move that surface around. It's almost like painting with it. Undo, that's not what I meant. Subdivide. This is the one that lets you break a panel into pieces. So I really want to cut this guy a couple of times like this so I can pull those pieces out. This is called subdivide and extrude. So I'm going to set my guy to subdivide. As I move over the wall, that green line is where I'm going to chop it up. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a little closer. I want to chop it here. And I want to chop it here. And I want to chop it here. So now you can see this one flat wall is now broken into 4 pieces. The other final flavor, extrude. With extrude, I can grab one of these pieces and pull it out. As before, if I've got my trigger finger down, actually in this case, the trigger finger, whoops, let me get back, there we go. The trigger finger keeps it moving straight. You can't bend it or twist it accidentally. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to grab both of these pieces and extrude them out to about there. And I'm going to hold down the trigger so it's nice and even. Now I'm going to grab this panel and arc it. Didn't like that. Let's try it again. Arc it like that. Arc it like that. Whoops. Let's subdivide here. So I can grab that panel, arc it like that. So now you can see that's much more of an arch shape than the original flat panel. I'm going to use my grab tool to actually grab this piece, get rid of it. Let's get a little more centered here. Grab this piece and duplicate. Duplicate, flip, flip, flip. There we go. And there we have a castle gate using the modification tool to slice it up, subdivide, and then extrude, change that shape, change that face. I could use this to make gates. You can actually cut windows and set them back, that type of thing. Hopefully, if we'd want to do a blocks series, let me know. We can do things like crenellations and take a lot more time in detail. Since we're just using this as a model for tilt brush, we don't need to do much of the detail here in blocks. We're going to be painting it in. So we'll do little torches and crenellations and windows and stuff using the tilt brush tools. Keeping this a simple primitive model means it does not take a lot of power, a lot of memory. So even things like a quest could bring this as a base and then go to town painting on it and not use as much power as if we had actually painted the whole structure from scratch. We'll be looking at that export-import in a later class. For now, we've got this whole thing as a model. We can continue to group pieces, move things around, straighten things out. So maybe that bothers me, so I can use my hands are back. I didn't even notice. Oh my gosh. Anyway, we're going to grab these pieces and just move them a little bit so they line up a little better. And now we're going to grab all these pieces and move them so they line up a little better. And you can go through and fine-tune and have fun with it. Now, when you're at the point where you're done, or you're just at the point you're done for now and you're going to come back later, don't forget on your controller, we have that little floppy disk. It's an extinct creature from the dawn of computer time called a floppy disk. They don't exist anymore, but people still use it as the button to save. But now that I've got this as Castle Bonsai, I'm going to save this. Now save as opposed to publish. Publish, if you are logged into your poly.google.com account, publish will actually put it on the internet so anybody else can use your model too. Save is when you're not done for the public, you're doing it for just yourself. Maybe you're using it for Blender or Tilt Brush. Save will save it locally to your device, your Quest, or your PC if you're on a machine. Save a copy. That lets you make a duplicate of this. So if I want more than one castle, I'll have a evil castle and a good castle. I'll make the same base model, save a copy. Make one a little more evil, make one a little more good, that type of thing. So I'm just going to do a regular save. Sign in is if you want to save it to your Google account. This is especially nice with a Quest. You can save it to your Google account, then go to any other device, load it up there, and see how it looks. Save locally actually puts it in a file on your computer, on your device. If you're using a PC, if you look in your Documents folder, Blocks makes its own folder automatically. So your PC, Documents, Blocks, there's a whole folder in there for the models that we create. And from there, you can use them anywhere else. So I'm going to save locally. And it gives you a little icon so you know it's been saved right at the top of your controller right there. So anytime I want, I now have access to this as a usable model. It's gone because I saved it. So we can go back in anytime we want with Tilt Brush, whatever. We've got those saved as models that we can use. Let me get, I think that's all we need to do for now. Once you've got them saved, whether it's locally or elsewhere, to get into the list of the models you've created, on your controller menu hand, the top of your two buttons, you'll notice in this case it's red. The top of the two buttons changes your controller to a list. The folder is the actual models on your computer. So now when I click on this guy, you can see this is the model I created. Open. Here is my model, and I can go back to work playing with it. I'm going to go back to that same place, top button, other castle picture. Insert brings that into your current environment. Open the model, takes over the whole environment. Insert allows you to bring in that model into other paintings. You can see this is a slightly different castle than that one. This was one of my practice castles. But this allows you to build up something out of several pieces. I'm going to make a car model. I'll make a truck model. I'll make a building model. Now I use those models to build a larger city, importing those pieces. That's the kind of thing we're going to talk about in another video. This video is about building these things. Now I can always go back in, work on it some more. A regular save updates the existing model. It doesn't make duplicates. Save as a copy if you want to make duplicates. But now I can take more time, expand, add more details, that type of thing. So try out blocks. Get creative with making your pieces. And we've got another video where we're going to be importing these pieces into Tilt Brush and using them as a base to build more elaborate, more interesting pictures. I hope this is helpful. Blocks is a program that is currently available through Steam as well as a couple other places. It is called Blocks by Google. And it's a delightful little program. Let's make that a different color so it's a little easier to see it stand out. Blocks by Google. And you can make wonderful things like these castles. I'm going to see if I can grab all the pieces so I can get it out of the way here. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. And go over here. There we go. So we've got Blocks by Google. It is a free program, so no matter what, you get your money's worth. And it's made to work directly with Tilt Brush. It's also made directly to export these pieces, usable in almost any 3D modeling and rendering program. So hopefully you guys are going to get a lot of useful stuff out of this. Give me links down in the comments for your creations or links to your poly so we can see what sort of stuff you guys do out there as well. Also, if there are subjects you'd like to see us do, let us know down in the comments. We pay attention to people request. Subscribe. So go ahead and join us here every Sunday afternoon on Twitch or on YouTube, youtube.com/shamelessmayhem. We do this all the time. We ain't going to be stopping for the known future. I look forward to see what blocks and things you do. Have fun, everybody.